Is it possible to talk your way into being a better teacher? I think that it is, but I'm not talking about looking in the mirror in the morning and saying, Dave, you've got what it takes today. I'm just picturing that, and it's amazing. Like, I picture my kids walking in and seeing me and just rolling their eyes so severely that their eyes actually get stuck in their head. But no, that's not what I'm talking about. In this video, I want to give you 3 practical ways that you actually can talk your way into being a better teacher, and that'll cultivate student motivation at the same time. All right, method number 1 is to talk about the value of your class. So in my book on student motivation, I call these micro sermons. They're short 30-second speeches where you just go for it, telling your students about why the work of learning in your discipline is valuable. And when I say valuable, there's so many ways to attack that. You can describe how math is beautiful, science is fun, phys ed is empowering, computer science is interesting, writing is useful, reading is relevant, art is cool, music is meaningful. I gotta tell you, colleague, I just believe that inside of you there are unique ways of communicating about the value of what you teach that only you are going to be able to communicate to your students. It's your unique angle on the importance of what you teach, and your students need to hear that from you, not in one grandiose speech at the start of the year. That's fine if you want to do that, but no, where you get your bang for the buck is by doing it a bunch. So do you want a number of times that I think you should try to do this year? 100 times. I'm talking actually get an index card, put 100 little check boxes on it, and every time that you spend 30 seconds just telling your students why this is so cool, you get to put a check mark. I mean, you could do this once every class period per day and you'd fill this baby up pretty quickly. But if you can just get 100 reps of these little micro sermons into your students, you are going to become a teacher who is more likely to just like spout this stuff off without even really trying. And you're going to get better at communicating about value, all of which makes you a better teacher and cultivates the value belief and the credibility belief in your students. Method number 2, tell your students what your class is all about. Here, I'm thinking about Everest Statements. I've got a video on these, but basically an Everest statement is a 1-sentence encapsulation of what it is that your class is all about. In my English classes, we're all about becoming better thinkers, readers, writers, speakers, and people. In my world history classes, we're all about growing in our knowledge of world history, of ourselves, and of leading a flourishing life. Those are my encapsulations. Feel free to steal them if they make sense to you. What's important is that you have an encapsulation and that you routinely reference it to students. One easy way to make sure you're referencing it is to make a simple poster, here's mine, and just point to it periodically. In fact, I recently met a teacher. She teaches 5th grade in Crocker, Missouri, and she actually, at the end of every warm-up in her class, asks her students out loud, what are we all about? And then her students respond chorally with the Everest statement for her class. That's awesome. That's another way that you can talk your way into being a better teacher. And that clarity that will result from your students being exposed to your Everest statement repeatedly, it's going to make you more powerful as an instructor, and it's going to empower them to actually understand what the heck your class is all about. And tactic number 3 is to use the kind of speech with your students that you would use in a college discussion class. So like here I'm picturing myself in the modern languages building at the University of Michigan as an undergrad. This is not the lecture portion of my history class. This is a discussion section. And in this discussion section, the grad student instructor has a circle up and everyone has to participate. But there's a tension when you participate. On the one hand, you're trying to speak at an elevated enough level to where the instructor gets a sense that you know what the heck you're talking about. You sound intelligent, but you're also not trying to sound super stuffy and pompous and arrogant because your peers are in the class too. I just think that's the perfect type of language to speak to your students with. And actually there's a study to support this one. So the researchers looked at the syntax used by preschool teachers during the morning meeting. And what they found is that the teachers who used a more elevated syntax with their learners, a more advanced vocabulary, in those teachers' classrooms, students develop bigger vocabularies by the end of the year. I love this because you don't have to like have vocabulary mini lessons to get this student achievement result. You just have to speak in this intentional way. So be careful not to sound too informal all the time. That's underselling what you can do. And also be careful not to sound like some arrogant, pompous person who's inaccessible to your students because that will not help either. Seek that middle sweet spot, that college discussion section sweet spot, and just have confidence that you doing that is going to benefit your students in a way that it may never be measured by researchers as increasing their vocabulary size, but it will. It will increase their vocabulary. It will increase the complexity of language that they're ultimately able to produce. And that's called having an impact. That's called doing your job in a way that's going to ripple into students' lives for as long as they breathe. Cheers.